Hey everyone, so with Cinco de Mayo upon us, I thought that we should learn a little bit more about the celebration of Cinco de Mayo. By now, a lot of people in the US is pretty familiar with the holiday that is Cinco de Mayo, even having the nicknames of Cinco de Drinko, Drinko de Mayo, or Chingo de Mayo. The Cinco de Mayo holiday is also confused for being the Independence Day of Mexico, which it's not. That day is in September. The biggest point of contention around Cinco de Mayo is that it's primarily celebrated in the US and not so much in Mexico. Although there are some cities in Mexico that do celebrate Cinco de Mayo, the fact of the matter is that this celebration was started in the US, specifically here in California. So let me explain. The Battle of Puebla happened in 1862. By this time, California was already a part of the US. So while the French were invading Mexico in the 1860s, the US was actually having its own civil war. And ever since California joined the US, it has always been on the side of the Union, making it a free state. And during the Civil War, the Confederacy also had plans on taking over the Western states. And not just the Western states, the Confederacy also had plans on invading Spanish-speaking countries. They would be aided by the Mexicans in Texas, who had essentially turned against their own people. The Mexicans in California realized what was going on. They would realize that the Civil War and the Mexican-French War was essentially the same fight. It was a fight against white supremacy. The Mexicans in California would organize, and they would form political organizations called Juntas Patrióticas Mexicanas. They would have monthly meetings and would raise money to send to Mexican President Benito Juárez in his war against the French. The first time the juntas would get together was on May 5th, 1863, in LA and in San Francisco, a year after the Battle of Puebla. So the first gatherings of Cinco de Mayo weren't necessarily a celebration, it was more of a political movement. The juntas were Mexican people taking a stand against slavery and racial inequality. The first juntas were originally run by all men. But on May 17, 1863, the French had regrouped and would eventually take Puebla and move towards Mexico City. The men organizing these juntas would lose hope. They felt defeated. So the men pretty much gave up. But the juntas, they weren't finished. A Mexican woman living here in Los Angeles by the name of Francisca Manso de Cavazos would organize. She would call a meeting of about 100 women and revitalize the juntas. She would go on to start Junta Patriótica de Señoras Mexicanas de Los Angeles. Other women groups would follow. But not just the women, the men groups would also follow suit. Slowly, the Cinco de Mayo gatherings would go from a political movement to what we know it now as a celebration of the Battle of Puebla.